Okay. Good evening and welcome to the June 28th, 2021 City Council meeting for the City of Lamar. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to say, of course, with summer here, we've had a very, very busy few weeks. We have a lot of events upcoming in the near future. As we'll be discussing later on today in the meeting, we'll be discussing some of the events that are happening next weekend or this upcoming weekend. We have a beach party, we have the ribbon cutting of North Gateway Park, we have baseball tournaments, we have swim meets coming up in the future. And I guess I wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you to the staff of Lamar, because these are great events for our community, they're great events for the people that are coming into our community, but whether it's our communications director who's getting out the flyers and doing all the promotions, or our public works, public safety, that are all working to try to get this in unison so that we can have great events, all the way down to our building inspector who's been helping out with planning on the North Gateway Park and helping to get some of these things coordinated. It really does take a team effort. And for instance, not having a city administrator in place right now, it really points out the need and the abilities of our different department heads. They have this thing working like a fine oil engine, and it is running great. We've had great success this year, and everybody is working together, and I can't thank them enough. Our community is running strong, and hopefully we'll finish out the summer and continue on with some of our other projects. We do have a lot of projects going on in our community. And over the last year, I know I've been one of those that say, hey, what about let's do this, hey, let's do that. And before too long, we have 15 different projects running. And, I have to really commend our staff because they've kept up, they've worked hard, they've really done a great job on trying to do these things because they, just like me and just like our council, we all want to have a better community. We want to have a community that grows, and a community that's strong, and a community that has so much to offer for our residents. So, with that said, I want to thank them very much from the bottom of my heart, and I really appreciate your work. Okay, so the next item on the agenda will be our invocation. We have Galen Burnett. Would you mind?
Father, we want to thank you and praise you for your love and the blessings that you've poured upon our community. Father, we want to thank you for the people who are running our city, our council, our staff, the people who are leading them and directing them. Father, thank you for giving us these good people, these men and women who are willing to serve and to make sure that our city is making progress. Father, we pray that you will just be giving wisdom and insight to our city council members tonight as they talk about the different matters of business. Father, help them to have the information that they need so they can make the best decisions. Father, we also ask that you will be continuing to help us to come up with a new city administrator who can carry a lot of the work forward into improving and growing our community. Father, we just ask that you will be leading us and guiding us and protecting us in these days as they come forth. And we just thank you for that. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your work. And we do this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Joe, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the time is now 7:04. I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Joe Gonzalez.
Here.
Rafael Rodriguez.
Here.
Gary Jenkins. Here. Kurt Crespin.
Here.
Oscar Riley.
Here.
Daniel Temez.
Here.
Anne Marie Crampton. Here. Kristen McCray.
Here.
Lance Clark.
Here.
Okay, you've all had a chance to review the consent agenda. Do we have any changes or corrections?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject that does not appear on the agenda. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and it is at the discretion of the council. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak to the council? Okay. As with usual, if you do have any questions or concerns that you'd like to bring to the council online, please feel free to ask your questions online, and Martha will bring them up to the council so we can discuss them during the miscellaneous items. Moving on, we have the city treasurer's report. Kristen?
I have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Did the council have any questions for Kristen? All right, seeing none, city clerk.
I also have nothing to report tonight.
Does the council have any questions for the clerk? All right, seeing none. As we've said over the last couple of weeks, we have divided up the city administrator's responsibilities between myself and the mayor pro tem, Anne Marie. So with that said, did you have anything to report on your city administrator report?
No, I would just say that I'm very grateful for our very competent and experienced department heads that do an excellent job of running their departments to the best of their abilities, and they just follow through with what they know is right to do in their departments.
I agree. Okay. We do have a couple of other items on the city administrator report. We do have Independence Day, of course, coming up on Sunday, July the 4th. The city offices, because 4th of July is on a Sunday, the city offices will then be closed on Monday, July the 5th for the 4th of July holiday. Friends of the Library monthly book sale will be on July 9th and 10th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There is a teacher reception Wednesday, August the 11th, 2021 from 12 p.m. at the School District Administration Office. I did notice that there was a, that's not on my list, but there is a meet and greet with their new school district superintendent that will be coming up in the near future. We do have the North Gateway Park grand opening on Saturday, July the 3rd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We'll have quite a few different activities out there. We do have a beach volleyball tournament. We'll be doing a ribbon cutting ceremony for our beach area as well as for the Aquaholics rental. We will also be having a luncheon with free hot dogs and hamburgers for anybody that would like to attend. So we hope that everybody will come out and spend some time and take a look at some of the improvements that we've done, because there's been quite a big stack of improvements, from the ADA ramp, accessible ramp, the actual floating fishing dock, as well as the boat ramp that we have out there. Let's see, there's the beach area, the beach volleyball, the Aquaholics building, just miscellaneous different items that we've done at North Gateway Park. So, in addition, bowl tournaments. There is the Cal Ripken Babe Ruth State Tournament that'll be happening the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12-year-olds for July the 1st through the 3rd at the Fourplex. This is a very big event. It is a state tournament, so we are doing everything we can. I met with the Recreation Department, Kendra, this morning to discuss everything that needs to be done there. I know Martha has been working on email blasts that could go out to all the coaches. This will be a big event where we have a great number of people visiting our community. It's a time for us to shine. So if you're out and about, or if you're working in the fast food industry or the front lines industry, please put a smile on your face and welcome to Lamar, and join me in showing what we have in Lamar that is so great. This will be on the July 1st through the 3rd at the Fourplex. And then at the same token, we'll have the red, white, and blue softball tournament, which is 12 and under, 14 and under, 16 and under, and 18 and under on July the 3rd and 4th at the Fourplex. And then on July 9th and 10th, 9th through the 11th, we'll be having the windmill tournament, which is a huge event as well. As far as swim meets, we do have a bee meet that will happen on Tuesday, July the 6th at 5 p.m. And then we have a great state swim meet that'll happen on August 6th through the 8th. So another opportunity for us to really shine. We do have our city administrator search. I wanted to give a little bit of an update on that. Our hope is that we'll be narrowing it down to our finalists sometime today or tonight, or within the next week. However, we did narrow it down from a number of 17 applicants all the way down to 6. The council has received the video interviews as well as questionnaires. We've had a chance to review them. We'll have an executive session tonight to go through those. And we'll try to narrow down that search to our finalists. At that point, then we'll be able to release the names of our finalists and begin the process of determining who would be our next city administrator. So we've been working with Strategic Governmental Resources. They've been a great asset for our community. They really did a great job on getting Steve Kill hired, our previous city administrator, and they've really stepped up on getting a replacement as well. And then last but not least, city council breakfast discussion. I know we have done the city council breakfast in the past. This year, we decided because of COVID, we put it off, and we decided to have a community social for the city council members and the community. It had a pretty good event, fairly well attended. But now that that's over, I wanted to give the council an opportunity to see what your thoughts are as far as resuming the city council breakfast. What do you guys think?
I'm open to it.
Ralph?
Schedule-wise, if I can make it work, I'll be there.
We usually do them the first Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock, and we would rotate it to different locations.
Are you buying?
Once, maybe. By mine. Jerry, what do you think? Doesn't, okay. How about over there? Any opinions, thoughts?
Doesn't matter to me. No, I think because of the turnouts that we've had haven't really been, at least since I've been part of them, maybe what we hope and expect. If there's an alternative, if there's something else or another way, another time, I don't know, what it would look like. But obviously, we want to make ourselves available to the community. And it just didn't seem like it was maybe as well attended as we hoped. And so if there's an alternative thing that we can do, I'd be, up to seeing what that might be.
What could we do? We do like a dinner instead of dinner.
Or you do kind of a business after hours type deal once, or, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Andrea?
So after hours might get more people there. I think we do have concerned citizens have the opportunity to come talk to us, and they know. In fact, I remember somebody saying, I know I can talk to council members and they'll listen to me. Then you have more likely to have a discussion at the council breakfast. I liked the event that we had at the Willow Creek Park, but we didn't have time or the opportunity to talk to community there. It just wasn't the right format for it. So, like Jerry and Manuel mentioned, maybe thinking what time that is. Maybe it's an after hours or something that's more conducive to one-on-one conversation.
And I think part of what the problem was is that we were serving. I mean, it was the idea to be more visible and to be more represented there at the thing. But you're right, with us serving, it made it difficult for us to actually mingle and talk. I tried to get out a few times to mingle with people, but it is a little bit more difficult. We could try, we called that evening the community social, and we could do the same kind of a social event once a month as well. And maybe just meet at different restaurants and get a little corner put aside so we can socialize and talk about things. If that's what you were thinking, is that kind of what?
I think so. I just think that, rather than try to continue something that we don't feel is productive, let's try something else.
Okay.
Or you could have it in the center down here, melting cookies or whatever once a month or whatever, just mingle there. At the events and have something, some kind of snack with there. Might get a better turnout. It wouldn't cost anybody anything.
Russ?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Just a simple one. I've gone to an awful lot of these breakfasts for many years, and unfortunately, historically, the attendance has been kind of low. But obviously, we want to be open to any questions that somebody would have. Perhaps if you could have 3 or 4 main topics on points pertaining to the city and overall life and its impact on the citizens, to give an in-depth discussion for a couple of minutes on each one, that might be kind of an attraction factor.
Okay.
That might get a few more folks out instead of just waiting for somebody from the audience to stand up and start the ball rolling with a question. Just a few thought topics to start the ball rolling in that regard. And perhaps a Q&A after that.
Okay. Well, I think our main goal has been to get our community more engaged with the city council, so we know that we're representing what your wishes are. We want to get your feedback, we want to hear your questions, we want to be able to explain the things that we've done and the decisions that we've made. So, you know, we're your representatives, and we're trying to just reach out to give you the opportunity to engage. And I'm okay with trying a evening social or a business after hours type situation. We could do something, I know they've done the at Bruin to others, they're going to be doing the social with the new superintendent, for instance. So maybe we can plan for an evening deal like that at Bruin to others, just to keep it as the first initial one. Does that seem, what about evening on a Wednesday, Monday, Friday?
Let's say Tuesday or
Tuesday.
Monday, Wednesday. I'd steer away from Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesdays.
So Mondays and Thursdays.
Okay. And Mondays, we have work sessions or council, so that makes it a little more challenging. So maybe we can do Thursday, once a quarter, once a month?
Right.
Once a quarter or once a month?
Let's try once a month, and then if it doesn't do anything, let's go to once a quarter.
Okay. All right, so we'll try one in July, and that way the next one would be September. We'll see how that one goes. We'll try towards the middle of July. Do you want to do that towards the middle after the holidays?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll get some information and we'll get it published for you.
I have one question on your thing.
Okay?
Are we doing fireworks this year?
Yes, sir. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Fireworks display. What time does that start, Jeremy?
So we always shoot about 9:15, 20 after 9, somewhere there. Just what's aesthetically pleasing in the sky.
Yeah, 9:15 you said?
Yeah, somewhere there.
Yes, I know there's some communities in the area that are not having their fireworks display. We definitely will be having ours, so shortly after 9. If you are in the area or in the region and would like to come to Lamar and enjoy our show, we'd be more than welcome to join us. We would love to have you here in Lamar. Okay, do you have any questions for the city administrator report, or any questions for Anne Marie or myself?
An update on the Troy Motel?
Update on the Troy Motel.
It's gone.
It's gone. They do have a few items that they need to finish up. They did tear down the actual, the electrical buildings. They have some concrete left in the ground that they'll be tearing up next week. They did move from the Troy Motel site over to the North Gateway Park so we can finish it up for the event this weekend. But yes, the building is demolished, it's leveled. We are expecting, I've reached out to Gene Cruikshank. Part of the contract when we received the property was that Gene would be our real estate listing agent. So I have reached out to Gene Cruikshank, and I have expressed our desire to get it started, to get the process started for selling that property. One of the things, and I guess I want to make sure, so I'm glad you brought this up, because I'd like to get the input from the council. When we were discussing it, when I was discussing with Gene, I expressed my own concern of saying, I would like to see a project in there, or a building or something in there that was going to be tax revenue generated. I don't feel like we should use this property to have a parking lot or an extra fuel pump or anything like that. I'd like to see something that's going to be sales tax revenue generated. We did have an offer last year from a neighbor next door, the local judge, but we didn't accept that because it was too early. And in my discussion with them, my thought was if they're just doing another fuel pump, that's not the greatest thing. But if they wanted to expand to add a fast food service, similar to what they do in Garden City, they have a Taco Bell next to it or some other restaurant next to it. I think that would be a wonderful addition to that side of our community. But aside from that, I guess I wanted to get some direction on what would you like to see as a council? What kind of things would you like to see in there?
Well, I think your thoughts are in the right direction. I would like to see it as well with something that's taxable right there, instead of just another fuel pump right next to the fuel pumps that are already existing there. But as you had mentioned, if they brought in like a fast food to an add-on with it, I'd be agreeable to something like that. But I definitely like the direction that you're thinking of right there in that area.
Yeah, a restaurant would be great, or a fast food would be great, or just something that would be more of a service oriented that could really help that part of our town, that southern part of our town.
I just don't want us to just have an empty lot for a long time. No,
Parking lot.
yeah, nobody shows up, nobody wants to buy it, nobody wants to put anything in there, and you just have this dirt lot. You know, I guess, which way do we go, you know, do we hold on to it, hopefully somebody comes in and does something with it, or do we?
Well, and one of the suggestions that I had, one of the discussions I had with Steve is we were actually, when we were sending out proposals to try to attract businesses, we were even using that as incentive. You know, is something that we can give a 100-year lease for $1 or something along that lines, just to incent a restaurant to come and build and open up on that location. That's a possibility. We'd still retain ownership, we'd still have the property, but it would give us the opportunity to use it as an incentive. Here's free property, all you have to do is develop it. That might be an option. I'd rather sell it and move on. Of course, that would be my preference, but if we have the right opportunity, I think it would be worth it to consider using it as an incentive. Anybody?
I agree with you on that. If you give somebody their
That's kind of the beauty of having the property owned by the city, is that we have a little bit more flexibility on what we can offer and how we structure a deal with that, so. Manuel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we can make it attractive, and that's the point. Somebody who's wanting to get in there, as attractive as we can make it, is good.
Okay.
With our deal with Crookshank, would you have to get his okay if we did that?
I'm sure we'd have to have some kind of negotiations with him, something that, you know, we can have that discussion. I'll bring that up to him as far as an option and see what his requirements would be, and we'll kind of bring that back and discuss it more in depth. Okay. Any other questions for the council? One thing that we haven't talked about is the soccer fields. That is still moving forward. I know Craig Brooks and Pat have met with the company that will be working on the sod. Am I missing something there on that? Or when did you, who was it?
September 15th.
September 15th, we'll be breaking ground.
Going down.
The grass will be going down September the 15th. So we'll be planting grass. The goal is to get the grass planted by September. It'll have a full year or almost a full year to grow and really dig in and get embedded. And then LCC is planning on starting their soccer program in 2022. So that'll give them plenty of time to really firm up that grass. But you'll be seeing some more information about that as far as the groundbreaking for the Escondido Soccer Park. So looking forward to that big project as well.
Oh, one other thing, I drove by the old power plant that's not there anymore.
Mhm.
It looked like there was one load of scrap left to go and they're done.
Wow, I haven't been by there.
That was about all that was left.
By July 3rd. Wow. Okay, great.
What's the update on the little coffee shop that's supposed to be coming in?
For scooters,
Yeah.
they had a target date of July the 15th. I don't know how that's gone. I have not spoken with Mr. Wilhite. I can reach out to him and find out, but that was the original target date. So we may have some delay there, but they are moving forward. I went by there earlier and kind of check it every few days to see what their progress is, and you can see where they have their curb and gutters and the drive-throughs all laid out, a lot of plumbing working on the interior, so it's coming along great. And I did have the opportunity to do a tour with Ezra and EJ from the Dish Room, who is working on the project with the Cow Palace, as well as Doug Thrall. It's amazing to see what they're doing in there. They have done some extensive remodeling. They're doing some in-depth renovations in the rooms themselves. Now that the Dish Room has gotten involved in this partnership, they've kind of changed course and have really started doing more in-depth work on the rooms themselves. So it was impressive what they were doing with the restaurants, but now that they've included the rooms and everything else that is included with that hotel, I'm just thoroughly excited to see what's going to come out of that project. It is huge. They've probably done more in the last 25 days, 30 days than has been done in the last 8 months. I mean, they have really got in there and started moving with the construction, with the remodels. So I'm excited to see where they're at. I know everybody's been waiting to see when it was supposed to happen. Their tentative date, not to hold them to it, but their tentative date was saying October, and that's just because of the amount of work that they've added on to it with the renovation of the hotel. So just to give you an update on the Cow Palace as well. Okay, any other questions for City Administrator report? Seeing none, do we have any reports or liaison reports, correspondence for the council?
I don't have any.
I don't have any.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is under old business. We have a public hearing for the City of Lamar FPPA Old Hire Pension Fund. Many years ago, the City of Lamar Fire and Police Pension was through FPPA. In or about 1993, the City of Lamar and the police chose to move their pension plan from FPPA to two separate pension plans, one for the fire department and one for the police department. At this time, there were a few retired members that chose to continue with FPPA. At the time, the City of Lamar approved Ordinance 931, establishing the City of Lamar Old Hire Pension Fund Board. Linda Williams, the administrative assistant to the city administrator, and the fire chief have all searched for the most recent information on the Old Hire Pension Fund Board. The board has been inactive for many years. There was one retiring participating in the Old Hire Pension Fund who passed away in 2021. This left a balance of contributions made by the City of Lamar. Per state statute, the governing body can authorize the use of these funds once a public hearing has been set and held, and they have approved a resolution stating the use of these funds. I know this was brought into us by Linda Williams. She would have a little bit more information on that. Would you like to speak on it any more than what I have there?
So basically, what was in the commentary is what it is. The funds are 1.1 million that would come back to the city. The city needs to decide how they want to utilize those funds.
This is one of the discussions that we had was about potential for a new public safety building. We're using these funds towards a new public safety building. Since these funds were for the fire police pension fund, we felt it would be appropriate to try to keep those funds for the fire and police departments. Our hope is that we can use our the new ARPA, the ARP funds from the American Recovery Plan funds to help assist these funds, put them together and utilize it to do the purchase or the building of the new public safety building. So that was the initial idea.
I move we go into a public hearing.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to move into a public hearing. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous. And we are now in the public hearing. Okay. Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that publication?
Proof of publication was, it was posted in the paper and it was posted on site. Back in February, we had 90 days for it to receive questions or comments from anybody. We did have one gentleman that reached out asking if he was eligible for those funds. However, through research from the prior city clerk along with the city treasurer, he was not eligible for those. So that's all we have.
Okay. How many, back in 93, do you know how many were actually utilizing these funds who were on the old hire
I think there were
5?
5 or 6 on the old hire at the time.
at the time?
And anybody that was left transitioned to the new plan, both police and fire. And fire personnel were the ones left in the old hire plan.
Okay. All right. We kind of already did the opening remarks as far as explaining what was happening. City council comments, do we have any comments from the city council? Any concerns or questions that we want to ask?
I don't have any.
No, no, right now.
I do like that we're considering a project that would greatly benefit the fire and police. That's pretty great. And I'm sure those retirees would support that.
Oscar, anyone? You good?
And it does comply with statute, 60 days since the publication occurred, so no issues there. One thing I wanted to note that it does say in the resolution at the, I think it's the last line there, is just that if there is anyone who comes within a year of this resolution passing, that that we would have to reimburse those funds if there was somebody. I understand that they've already done their investigation, but I just want to make you aware of that.
Kristen, do you have anything or want to add?
No, we were talking about that before the meeting, so I would just have to restrict those funds until we decided to use them. So that's what I would do, to restrict them for that special use.
Linda? Okay, so I'll open the floor to anybody here that would like to speak in favor or against. Anybody would like to speak in favor of allowing the city to use these funds? Do you guys have anything that you want to add?
We're in favor.
Which part?
Moving forward with this.
Okay.
I don't think, after Lance was saying about the 1 year, we're well out of a year of actually moving forward on a lot of things with this, so I don't see that as an issue.
Okay. Kyle?
I'm in favor of it.
Just giving you the opportunity to speak. I want to make sure everybody had a chance. Are there anybody that would be against or oppose this that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, what is the, I guess we'll close the floor. What is the council's pleasure?
Move we close the hearing.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, now that we've moved out of the public hearing, the next item on the agenda is resolution of the city of Lamar. Do we need to approve this or do anything? Here it is.
I make a motion, we approve the resolution, have the mayor sign it.
I'll second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to approve the mayor to sign and to direct the city clerk to apply for the PPA funds. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous. Okay. One step closer to a public safety building. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 3, ordinance 1246 draft This is a draft ordinance establishing a program for identifying and registering vacant residential and commercial buildings, to determine the responsibilities of owners in vacant buildings and structures, to ensure the safety, structural stability, and code compliance, and to speed the rehabilitation of the vacant buildings. I had initiated this as a draft for our agenda tonight because after speaking with our city attorney, he felt it was appropriate for the council to have one more look at it to discuss the highlighted areas with changes that he has made, and then we can bring this back for the first reading at a future council. So, Lance, did you have anything you wanted to discuss on that or point out in particular?
Yeah, so I tried to incorporate what was the council, our last discussion, which was a couple of months ago on this draft ordinance. It was discussed that there wanted to be a separation in fees for commercial vacant buildings and residential vacant buildings, and those fee structures were set separately based on what council had discussed that night. And I guess one of the things I wanted to point out, which I also spoke to Chief Miller on this as well, just about the structure of those fees. And so obviously there's more, higher costs for commercial buildings versus the residential. One of the concerns I have is just whether those fees are associated with the expense to effectuate this ordinance. I think you want to have, a fee should be tied to what the purpose is, and the purpose here is to, investigate these, monitor whether or not they're appropriate, create a list, probably do some kind of checking up on, what the status is, depending on the cooperation of these owners, and that type of stuff. So my thought is I wanted the council to consider that fee versus penalty, because it appears, at least from my looking at it, that this seems more punitive than it does as a fee to assess what the cost would be to recoup for those kind of processes and evaluations and things that'll be necessary to create this list and check on it and figure out what's wrong with these buildings and how to get them back in order.
And it seems like we were trying to mainly find out, what are you doing with this building? I mean, it's been sitting here for 6 months. What are you doing with it? What are your plans? It's not so much about charging them a fee to find that out. It's just trying to require them to let us know what their direction is. So is that kind of what you're thinking, or?
Like I said, I wanted council to consider those amounts that were initially put in there and determine whether they think those are appropriate, if they want to move forward with that, or if they think an adjustment's needed, warranted. Most of at least the ones that I looked at from other cities, they didn't separate the the commercial and residential. I don't think that's as big a problem as maybe the amounts that are being charged differently. But that's the only concern I have, is just, are these fees that can be tied to an amount that'll be needed for processing these buildings and coming up with, what buildings are vacant and what are the issues that are preventing them from being used. So I just wanted to present that to council. I think if it becomes punitive, then there could be arguments for that not being that ordinance isn't effective, and then you run into litigation issues with that. So that's just one of my concerns.
Well, I believe the fee structure was a motivator for the owners of said properties to get those registered, and not continue to keep sitting on those things and do nothing with them. I believe that was the motivation and the thought behind the fee structures.
So just to clarify, for residential vacant buildings, they would pay a 0 fee for the first year that it remains vacant. They just need to register. The owner shall pay an annual fee of $100 for the second year the building remains vacant. And then the owner shall pay an annual fee of $200 for the third year the building remains vacant. The owner shall pay an annual fee of $300 for the fourth year, and each subsequent year the residential building remains vacant. So basically, we're just asking them to register it the first year. The second year, if they haven't made any changes or made any progress on it, it would be $100. The third year was $200, fourth and thereon is $300. Now, the same way commercial vacant buildings would pay an annual fee of $50 for the first year. But then after that, every year after that, it would be $250 for the second year, $500 for the third year, and $1,000 for the fourth year. It's substantially higher, and it is more punitive, like we were saying. But the idea was, after a year, you would think that they would have a plan to either sell it, rent it, remodel it, demolish it, have some kind of a plan for the building. So the idea is to try to encourage them to do something before the first or the second year, third year, fourth year. And if it's going on past 4 years, they should have done something by then. So I just wanted to read those out so that everybody would know what we were talking about when we talk about the fees that are paid.
Since we're talking about years, I am assuming that the first year means if you happen to have a vacant property that's been sitting there for 5 years already, we're not gonna make a judgment on when it became vacant and make things retroactive. Every vacant property as of whatever date this is passed starts at year 1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was like 3 months and then they needed to register it.
90 days is when they need to register.
buying. So if say I have a rental that's been empty for 90 days, I need to register it and let them know, okay, I'm registering this property, it is vacant, it's gonna be vacant for a year because I'm remodeling it. The city knows what I'm doing and I don't pay anything for the residential. But then after a year, if I still haven't completed that, then I would need to pay $100.
Right.
Right, so if they've already had it vacant for 5 years up until today, they should immediately, is that what you're saying? It should immediately be enforced at
Well, it starts, no, I think it starts year 1.
year 1?
Yeah,
We can't start until we pass this ordinance anyway.
right.
So with commercial buildings, I think we probably see this more with commercial than residential. If they bring everything in, it's ready and have it up for sale, it's just not selling, it's being sold at a reasonable price, and they still being assessed the fee.
No, right, if I'm correct, if they're trying to actively sell it, rent it, or put it to use, and they're
Even
not.
though it's vacant, but they're done, the remodels, it's on the market, it's not selling, they will not be assessed the fees.
It's set up that way, yes. That's one of the exemptions is for 12 months while they're trying to sell it.
Yep. So if they are doing something that they had already proposed, demolishing it, selling it, renting it, as long as they're actively trying to rent it, there's a big for sale sign. I mean, obviously, if there's a 2-inch by 2-inch, and they're really not trying to rent it, then obviously they're not trying to rent it. Or if they don't have it published and it's not up to code to be able to rent, that's a problem as well.
On back to the residential, if I may, my thought was when we came up with this on the residential part, that we were running after the dilapidated buildings and those that were boarded up, or not boarded up, or that were a safety hazard. We weren't running after those that weren't not dilapidated or under rental. But correct me if I'm wrong, but are we now, if I'm reading this correctly, is it now assessing those that are able to rent out but that are not rented out and they're being vacant? I mean, because, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I read it is, I have a piece of property and it's got 3 rentals in it. I got 2 rented out and 1's not rented out. And if I don't rent it out in 90 days, you want me to register that. And I kind of have a problem with that because it's not dilapidated, it's not boarded up, it's not a safety hazard. I feel at some point, I guess, that, that it's gone further than what I expected it to go. I'm not out to hurt the citizen out there who has buildings that are rentable, but I was just after those that were, dilapidated, destroyed, were an eyesore to the property adjacent to it, and those that could be a hazard to to the kids in our communities. That's kind of what I was getting after, not to try and hurt landlords in any such way, but please correct me.
I think it would still work as a preventative from that occurring, you know, I mean, they're not gonna, it's not gonna harm them just to, you know, have an assessment done. It's not a problem to have an assessment done. And it's, like I said, it's preventative, so that way they are then gonna continue to pursue getting it rented. That's all that needs to be, you know, acknowledged.
So I thought, again, like with the residential, we're asking you to register it within the 90 days. So if it's been empty for 90 days and you haven't registered saying, yes, I'm renting this property, it is,
And it's
up to
rentable.
code, it's rentable, and as long as I'm renting it, then I don't have to do anything other than just let you know that it's rentable.
And then
So
they're still compliant and they're still good.
they're still compliant, they're still good. Now, if I don't register it, and I'm not renting it, and I'm not selling it, and I'm not actively doing anything, then yes. Is that how I'm reading that?
Well, there's no cost for the first year, so I assume that if someone's actively trying to rent a piece of property, it's not going to take them a year to have it rented. And in order to, I mean, in most residential settings anyways, so there's no cost associated to their first year as far as rent, or registering it with the city.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Does that kind of help their
Yes.
impression?
Yes.
And so the idea is just to keep them moving. And, you know, we have businesses that come to Lamar and say, I'm ready to open up the doors. And if they go to a building that's been shut down for 6 months, a year, 5 years, and they're ready to open today, but that building is going to take 8 months, 9 months of repair work, we're not ready for it. It's not ready to do it. So we're trying to encourage those buildings to be ready, so that way when they do come in, we need a location, here's one right here, it's ready to go, it's registered, it's rentable.
And it seems to me that it would have to be an abandoned property more than just a failure to rent property based
Right.
on the, I mean, we have a lot of exemptions in here. We also define it pretty clearly on what is a vacant property. And so I think that's important because, you know, a lot of those situations that you're talking about, they're given extra time to try and figure out who's, you know, whether this is abandoned or whether this is just a failure to rent.
What if it's a second home? What if they have a home out in the country, they have a home in town? And they maybe park there on occasion or keep extra furniture or?
I can say they're living in it part-time, and then it's livable. It's not vacant, because
How
they're
do
living in
you,
it part-time.
and that's part of the, I mean, it's just, one of the intricacies of it all is that, well, what do we consider living in it part-time? Do they have to stay overnight once a year, or, you know what I mean?
As long as
Or
they're
are they
paying
just parking,
utilities.
are they just parking their car there when they're in town?
Like Linda was saying, I think if they're paying utilities, then that would be, if they weren't paying utilities, that might be something.
To me, this ordinance, it's a lot harder to get that fee put on than it is to actually just, hey, let's just fix it. You know, to me, I don't know, it just seems like it's very difficult to be put on that list year after year after year without nobody doing anything. It's just what it is. I mean, just people who don't want to absolutely do nothing with their property. Obviously, if they're living there part-time, they're doing something with their property.
I have a little house behind my house. I use storage at the house. What's that come from? I have electricity.
Again, under the vacant building definition, I mean, if there says unoccupied and having utilities disconnected.
Okay, it's got electricity.
So, I mean, I think that's the difficulty in this, in this resolution, in this ordinance, is that you have to be specific enough to find some of these, to isolate what you're looking for, but you want it broad enough that you're going to encompass the ones that you're wanting to monitor. And so I think that's the difficulty in this ordinance in itself. And like I said, I think ours is better than other, this version is better than other cities that I've seen have enacted. But enforcement's always going to be cumulative circumstances. It's not going to be one, I don't think whoever's doing the monitoring is going to really determine based on one incident, because it's going to be accumulation of all those factors that really determines who's going to fall into that. But again, it's not easy to clearly cut it one way or another.
Okay, now, the next question, who's going to register all these buildings?
That's been determined.
It will need to be, the owner would need to register it, and I would imagine that if the code enforcement is out and about and sees an empty building or a vacant building, that they could actually put a reminder that they need to, or a notice that they need to register.
So you're saying we follow their code enforcement?
Yeah. What do you think on that, Kyle? The building inspector?
Shall be responsible for registering.
With building and
property.
planning department.
Building and planning, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how we were doing that.
So again, I think this is the reason why we wanted to bring it back for discussion rather than for putting it on for reading, because I think there's a lot of pieces to this and impacts a lot of people, obviously. So I still have concerns about the fee structure, and so that was one of my biggest issues. But from our last conversation, I put in the amounts that council had directed.
What would you recommend on the fee structure? Different? Not specific, but just kind of, what would you recommend on changes?
It states that the annual increase fee amount shall be reasonably related to the costs incurred by the city for demolition and hazard abatement of or repairs to vacant buildings. So I think you want to tie it to some of these. I realize that expense could be extreme. It also could be pretty minor if they get in compliance and do the things they need to do. If they're selling it, if they just deed us property, those type of things are going to be inexpensive. But if you have to go in and tear these properties down, that's when it'll get expensive. Or if you have to go a legal route and, get orders to demolish or whatever, that's when it'll get expensive.
Okay?
So if we had to have lawyers' fees to any of this, are we in the right ballpark, or are we going down here?
And I think we're trying to make it not, well, we can spend more money on trying to fix it than fees, right?
Lisa?
Just, if we're talking the cost of demolition, if any of those properties need asbestos abatement, that could be another 10 or 20,000. So no, it won't cover the cost of demolition and abatement of hazardous materials.
Yeah, we could be setting ourselves up for a pretty expensive acquisition.
And that's true, but we would be able to at least file a lien against that property.
And I see these fees more in the implementation of it. I know they're associating it to abatement and repairs. I think that we also need to consider, and I don't see a cost associated with monitoring these as expensive as the demolition aspect of it, but.
Okay. Well, maybe we should do a work session. I know we have a work session that we could do.
It's possible, I mean, because even the reality is that if we're going to put it under code enforcement, does code enforcement even have enough employees to cover it? Or would it require having to have another person on code enforcement just for that, and so then that, would easily take that.
Right. Okay. What do you think of doing the work session just to go over this ordinance?
I think that's wise.
I think we have another one that we need to discuss next on the agenda that might go into that same work session. If you want to table this, what are your thoughts?
That's fine.
Oh, we don't need to
It's
table?
just a discussion.
This was a discussion anyway.
And Lance, even if you could maybe be a little more specific, in putting down just exactly what, what things we are looking at for our next discussion on it, you know, for when we go to work session with it. This way, it gives us a little bit better understanding of where you're coming from.
Like attorney's fees?
I will
I
shoot
can.
for another work session or a work session in July. I know the first, the 19th. It would be nice for, I would say maybe we can do an early council meeting next meeting. And that way we're not doing a separate night. So we'll look at July 12th, we'll come in early. Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
What are we, 5:36?
6 should be fine with an hour. Okay, is that good? All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is our Public Safety Board discussion. Of course, the Public Safety Board was a proposal that was brought up last year, which was to create a board that would oversee and would give oversight for our police, fire, ambulance departments. As part of that Public Safety Board, the board will actually be working on this public safety building as well in the future and doing other projects as well. So this was passed on the first and second reading. The ordinance is now in effect, but we do have some next steps that we need to discuss, and that's why I brought this to our attention tonight. Linda, do you have anything you want to throw in there?
So I'm guessing excuse me, to get the board set up, we would need to create some type of application process. And I know there were specific questions that you had for that. So
Okay.
that would be the first step, is to create the application process. And then we'll go right back.
Now, in accordance with the ordinance, the applications would be reviewed by the fire and police chiefs, right? And then they would give it to the administrator with their recommendation. Administrator would review it and then pass it on to the city council with their recommendation. So that would give 2 layers of review before it goes to the city council for signature and approval. Oh, also to the board itself if it's in place before it goes to the city council. Because the board itself would actually do the final review and approval to the city council. Am I seeing that correctly? Okay, so that's why it's very vital for us to get the board set up. How many members were there for?
5.
5?
So chief of police, fire chief, city administrator, and 2 citizens.
Oh, I thought it was 5. It was 3.
No.
Three citizens.
3 citizens.
3 citizens.
My thought was that it was
3 members.
5
2
citizens. That was my thought, that it was 5 citizens. And the chief of police and Jeremy would automatically be on that board anyway. And they were staggered terms. Now, I don't have the paperwork in front of me or the draft or the ordinance, but I thought that's the way it was written up, 5 citizens. If we could even come up with that, the reason why we chose 5, so that way when they voted, that it wouldn't contest it.
That is, it is 5.
It is 5 citizens.
It is 5 citizens.
Okay.
And the citizens were staggered terms. It was a 4-year, 3, with 4-year terms, and then 2 that were 2-year terms. So 3 of them will have a 4-year term initially, and then the other 2 would be just the 2-year terms.
Correct.
So we can use our current application for board members, but I think we need to add some items onto that to make sure that we're pre-qualifying these individuals. I think public safety is one of those the different departments in public safety is pretty critical. We want to make sure that we have somebody in there that's semi-familiar with this.
I think it's important that they know that those that are filling out the application, that they also understand they're going through a background check.
Okay. So we have to make sure to add in that they're going to do a background check as well.
Will we see the application before it goes out to these people to fill out the board?
Yes, we can have the application approved, not the individuals, but I
Right,
mean the
right.
overall.
No, just the application.
You can do that. So I guess Jeremy and Kyle, would you like to work on that as well for an application and work with Brenda to get one set up? Because Brenda usually does the applications, right? And publications for boards,
Boards and commissions.
boards and commissions.
Yeah.
So if you could use one of our current applications and modify it according to what Kyle and Jeremy think we need to add in as qualifiers, qualifying questions, and then we can bring it back to the next meeting and the council can review it and see if we need to add or subtract anything and finalize that so we can get this published. Are you guys good with that, council?
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other discussion with this, with the safety board questions? No? All right, seeing none, then we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Agenda item number 5, which is an ordinance amending ordinance number 1157, same being an ordinance amending Article 9 of Chapter 18 of the Lamar Municipal Code to adopt the 2018 International Building Code with certain exceptions. Last meeting, I had handed out, or Craig had actually handed out, a copy of the 2018 ordinance that, or the International Building Code. Would you like to speak on that, Craig?
Yes. Good evening, council. I went ahead and gave you a draft of an ordinance that Steve had actually put together after jumping on board, thinking it was a good idea. Gave you a brief under the background, put together in the packet information regarding the differences in the code from the 6 to the 18, those kind of things. Also, let you know that in your letterhead that our ISO rating would be improved if we pass this, which would help all of our citizens, helps out our fire department, so we eliminate some codes that they don't have to look at, helps us become compliant with changes in construction, the industry, materials, techniques, easier to navigate. And I also supplied you with a list of all my boards and citizens and contractors that we met with and gave you how they voted on each item. So hopefully it provided you with enough information that it's pretty clear and pretty precise, and I think moves us in the right direction.
Okay.
Looks like they all said yes to it.
They did. We did make some exceptions to it, and that's why that's in the ordinance. The International Energy Code, we wanted to stay in the 15 if you pass this versus going to the 18. And then we did something with the swimming pool and a couple like that, which would help out everybody.
We wanted to make sure that we weren't adding problems to our, I mean, we need development in our communities. We need new housing, we need new development all the way around. And it's difficult as it is to maintain these IBC codes. But at the same token, when we look at the ISO rating, that affects everybody's insurance. And coming from a community that has high wind and hail damage, our insurance rates are very high as it is. So if we can find a negotiated medium to where we have a little bit more stringent building codes that are reasonable, that will lower our ISO or improve our ISO rating, so that will help lower our insurance rates, that would be a benefit for not only the citizens, but also for the builders. And we don't really want to make it more difficult for people to build in Lamar by any means.
None of this is retroactive unless you remodel or something.
No, it would go, if it was approved, we would, once it was read and approved, then we would go forward from that date forward and not worry about it. And anybody that currently has an open permit would be grandfathered, I guess, I hate that word, into the 2006, because you can't expect them to change. So.
So mainly, we wanted to bring this up. You know, last meeting, we brought it to you. We gave you all the documentation so that you could review it and bring it back any questions that you had. Tonight, we wanted to make sure we answered any questions that you may have. And if you are okay with it, we can bring it back at the next meeting for the first reading of this, because it will need, since it's an ordinance change, we'll have to do a first and second reading to approve it. So the objective is tonight, if you are okay with moving forward, we can plan to put it on the next agenda for a first reading. If not, we can do another discussion and then come back.
I'm okay with moving forward.
I'll second.
Moving forward. Yeah. Okay. So we will schedule it for our next meeting so we can do our first reading on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, agenda item number 6 for new items is marijuana research committee report. Of course, you may remember that at the last meeting, we were made aware that the petitioners for marijuana had collected all the petition signatures that they needed. This was something that the council was not involved in whatsoever. But this petitioning body will be putting it onto the ballot in November. They've approved, they've gotten all the signatures they've needed, they've met all the requirements. So with that in mind, I had asked to create a committee to start doing the research on this. If it does pass, I wanted to make sure that we had all the information that we needed as a city, so that we don't put ourselves in any litigation, any potential for litigation, any potential for problems, and we try to minimize and mitigate as much risk as we could. So with that said, I asked the committee to give us an update tonight. I'm going to start?
Sure. Okay. So, so far, we have met with Los Animas. I have a phone call into Trinidad. And we received some information, Lance was able to get us some information from Rocky Ford. I believe we're going to reach out to CML and SURSA to get some information from them. What we do have so far is we've got some sample resolutions that would include like fee schedules and items like that. A sample of an application that Los Animas is currently using. A sample of a resolution adopting the rules and regulations for licensing, along with several sample ballot questions and several ordinances covering establishments, fees, locations, taxing. The one thing that was heavily suggested is that we create a marijuana authority board, and it is an entity separate from the council. It's protection for the council to have somebody that actually is going to go out and review everything, check it before the license is approved, and they would be the one approving it. Council would not be approving renewals and stuff like that. And it was, like I said, heavily suggested. Let's see. Currently, Los Animas does not have any limitations to the amount of dispensaries that they have. They are actually getting ready to do a grow and manufacturing business. That's about a year out, they said. They're really excited about that. We asked them a few questions. Did their crime rate go up? They said no. They actually have had minimal calls regarding the facilities. The city clerk in Los Animas, she did say that these are heavily regulated facilities from the state. They come down at least quarterly to check the dispensaries out. The security at the dispensaries are phenomenal. Cameras everywhere. Their locking system as far as keeping their product and monies away from anybody is unbelievable. That's all that I really have. I believe Kristen has some information on financials.
Yeah, so I had questions, and the mayor had sent us with some questions. Mine were mostly from the financial side of things and how things worked. The lady, the clerk treasurer at Los Animas, and her assistant were amazing, and their knowledge, they had a lot of knowledge, and they were willing to share anything with us and be helpful and be a resource in the future. So that was refreshing. I was completely impressed with both of them. So one of my main questions and concerns was from a banking standpoint, what the city would be able to do with the sales tax collected. Once we collected it, would we be able to deposit it in the banks? So I had that discussion with them. They had no bank in, their bank in Los Animas wouldn't take it, but they have one close in La Junta that does, and she was aware of 4 in our region that would take the money. So I just started calling our banks in town, and I learned a lot today about different things, and I was quite surprised at some of the answers that I got. So let's see. So Legacy Bank will take the sales tax money. They consider it indirect money from marijuana sales, and so they would take the money. There is a limit to what our account balance could be with them, just from a security standpoint from theirs and leveraging the money and insuring it. So we'd have to work with them if we were going to use them, if we were going to have any balances over $250,000 in that account. Frontier Bank actually said that they would accept the money with no problems. They would consider it sales tax, and there would be no issues with accepting that money. So that was encouraging for me, that it wouldn't be a problem. We already have established accounts there. GN Bank was going to do some more research. They've had some communication between their banks and leaders that were foreseeing this coming up and wanted to have more discussion on it, but at this time wouldn't take any of the money. And Community State Bank will not accept any of the funds at this time. But it does give the city of Lamar, if this passes, options to the banks that we already bank with. So that was encouraging to me. Another thing that I was worried about, or was on my mind, was who regulates the sales, and would we be collecting all the sales tax we were supposed to, and things like that. And I was blown away by the amount of state regulation on these facilities. So that is regulated from the manifest of the product coming into that business. The state, they have to report that to the state, so that's recorded. They actually have to report their sales electronically to the state daily, and they tie that back with that manifest and the amount of product brought in. So it's very heavily regulated. They know what's being sold. They know what each establishment's charges. So they, turn that into the state every day. So there is always an opportunity for us to check that and make sure that we are receiving the correct amount of sales tax. So that was impressive to me. The state regulations are unbelievable, and the state does regulate it, as Linda said, down to the cameras, the type of facility, the security, everything. They regulate that. It's unbelievable how much they regulate it. So that was encouraging to me too. I just had absolutely no idea. So Los Animas did suggest that we put some things in our ballot question, like the percent of sales tax, because then it cuts down on the amount of time. That was one thing they didn't do. They learned from it. So that was, an important advice to us as well, I think. The authority board, Linda already covered, the no increase in crime. And then the state also regulates. They suggested zoning, that we're very specific on where they can put these establishments. The state has really strict regulations, so many feet from schools, places of worship, rehab facilities, incarceration facilities, and things like that. So the state regulates that, but they encouraged, if we were going to do it looking forward, that we looked at that very specifically, about where we would allow them, in what zone, and where we would want them. So that was all I took back from that, but I was thoroughly impressed with that information and the people. They're very nice people, very knowledgeable.
Kyle, did you want to add anything?
I think one of the biggest things we need to look at right now is the ballot language. What does council want to see in that? Because I believe July 12th, we have to have that ballot language set. That's our next council meeting. So I think council needs to make a decision on what percentage that sales tax needs to be. Lance and I have had some discussion about this, but I think that's something we have to have done soon, so we can get that ballot language nailed down tight. The regulation, the zoning, all that we can do after it passes, or if it doesn't pass, then we'll have to worry about it. But I think right now, that's the big hurdle we need to overcome, is what percentage rate, and there's, I don't know how many different places are doing it differently. Some say they can go up to 10%, 15%, starting at 5% without having the voters' approval. So I guess that would be the question for council, is where do we want to start with this language?
Do you have an idea of what the other communities are doing?
So Los Animas did 5.75, which was kind of in between Rocky Ford and Ordway. She said it would be between two towns. I don't remember exactly. Other places are doing, I think it was up to 10% without voter approval. They were starting at 5%, and then council could have adjusted up to 10% without voter approval as part of that ballot language. Another thing, an excise tax, there's a lot of things that we could go. Does council want to do just recreational, or do they want to do medical marijuana too? And those are all kind of the things for the ballot language that we need to have nailed down.
And retail and grow was
Right, and
the
grow,
other issue.
right.
And manufacturing.
And we have to think if we're gonna allow recreational and medicinal, we get no sales tax off of medicinal versus your retail or recreational.
You wouldn't have, well, I guess you would have grow, you have to be in a building.
Correct, and that's, again, very heavily regulated. They do have it in place. I don't believe Los Animas has one right now. They're going to have one, but they're obviously able to get their product that they're going to sell from other places. And you can put an excise tax on that as they bring it in. So there's a lot of moving parts that we need to get nailed down
And
here.
I think
rather
too, with that
quickly.
grow thing, we need to be really careful when we set our regulations on those because of the process that it is to process from your grow facility. Theirs has to be sent out to be processed because of the volatility of it.
To do
The extracting.
The
yes.
extracting, because it was such a
Right,
volatile
they use-
process. So they require that be sent out and not done at that facility.
So is this going to be a separate thing on the ballot?
Correct.
That we will put on?
Well, we're not putting it on.
We're not.
We're-
Right.
Well, how are you going to add this in taxes to?
The ballot question has to, we're gonna create the ballot question. The entity.
Petition approved the ballot, to be
Correct.
put on the ballot. Now, we
Correct.
need to determine the specific language of the ballot.
Yes, you get the right language.
Yeah, we're gonna write the language.
Okay.
Because there's stipulations that we want in our ballot question.
Another question that's come up is, do we want to regulate the number of businesses? And we're in a time crunch now, so.
Yeah. And we wondered how to limit it without discriminatory or limited in certain ways. I guess there are some communities that have been limiting it by application, is that right?
Are
Did you
there-
review?
Are
I don't
there
know
limitations
that.
to how we can limit it?
As far as, what do you mean?
So what if you say it has to be locally owned, like, they have to be local resident?
I think you would have to be very careful doing that, because you're discriminating against other businesses or another business. And this is the initial startup is a huge investment to get this thing up and running. Yeah, I know, that's what, we have buildings, we're sitting here talking about vacant buildings.
And then my other question is there a limitation on the tax can be?
I don't believe there is. I don't think you want to.
You don't want to make it so high that
So-
the citizens will be like,
So,
no.
and a lot of the ballot questions that you can find have similar formatting, similar numbers that get used, tax rate changes.
Just because it's similar, I'm saying, can we set it higher?
Well, The only ones I've seen that have a cap in them, limited to 15%.
So what they do is they'll say, for instance, like we were just saying a minute ago, can the council, do you give the authority for the council to go up to 10% or 15%? And then after it's passed, we can determine, well, we'll do 5.7 now, and then we can do up to 10% without going back to the ballot.
I think you'd have to set it right now,
You have
the
to
ballot
set it
question,
specific?
and then approve up to 10, 15%. That's all the ones that I've read.
Okay.
That's it.
So if we set it and they go, no, we don't want that, then it goes off the ballot, that's coming again
It
next
doesn't
year.
pass, correct.
That's my question.
So, and I would really like, if we formulate a ballot question that's favorable, to have the company that circulated the petition agree that we're submitting this for the ballot question purpose. Because I think there's a question on whether or not they can submit what they circulated and put that on the ballot. And I think that's a viable alternative that they could end up doing. So I think if having them on, I think if they're on board, that helps as far as getting this, having one question posed to the people, not two.
Could you set the number of facilities related to population?
I have not seen that in any of these. I mean, so that would be something that would come after, if it passes, it would be something that would come in the form of regulations. I haven't seen it on the ballot question that is our pressing issue that we're trying to address.
Well, I'm trying to avoid discrimination.
Well, that's, when we would set up the rules and regulations, whether it be by resolution or ordinance, that's where we would set those.
Some cities have limited the number of facilities. That was one of the ordinances that we circulated in our committee, was one of the cities that limited it to 3 marijuana shops. So it was done that way. It wasn't challenged, but there could be various reasons for why that's the case.
So right now, we need to determine what's going to be on the ballot itself. We need to do that by July the 12th, which is our next meeting, so we can approve it on the next meeting. So that's how much time we have to get it figured out. We could do a proposal, I guess we can bump up our work session on the 12th earlier, but if we can get it sent out to the council to review it beforehand, to help try to speed up this process, do it that way.
And Lance asked me before the meeting if we could kind of come up with an idea of what it might generate. I mean, we could do some tables, I could, figure some things out just guessing. It would be a complete guess, because we can go off of what Los Animas had, They've got 3 working on 4 now, and then their grow will come in later. But we have no idea, so it's really hard to come up with a guess. It's not something that I couldn't do based on a complete guess, but I think to have that in the ballot question itself would be difficult. So I think more just the percentage and the limit, like Kyle spoke of, would be much
Although most of the
smarter.
ballot initiatives that I saw actually had, this will increase taxes by X thousand. So maybe that's, you can reach out to the state and see if, because
But
they're
it's
putting it on
not-
that ballot, on their ballots
Yeah.
with estimations.
But it's not affecting the public unless they buy it, I guess.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So
exactly.
this is a little bit different. It's very
Mhm.
to a very specific business. It's not like an overall sales
Right.
tax. And I've seen it on ballot questions where there's an overall tax.
Mhm.
I believe we did it when we did the increase for the community building or the library, one of those. But
Right.
this is a little bit different in fact that it's only very specific businesses that it will be taxed. So that's why it's a lot harder. So I need your direction on that as well, whether you want me to come up with those amounts.
Well, I think it
or
would be good
guess
to
of
get a
some
couple
sort.
of samples and have them sent to the council over the next week. And that way, when we come back on the 12th, we can have the samples to
Mhm.
we'll take this part and that part and make one together at the same time. It's going to be hard to put that together. We can't.
We have to
We have
do
to have a
first reading
decision.
on the 12th.
Okay.
Sounds like we're going
So
to.
should we do a work session for then?
I think so.
So do you want to look at something like the 6th or the 5th, everybody's off, that's next Monday. We could do it on the 7th, 8th, 9th. The 7th would work for me.
7th is fine with me.
And me.
Okay. So let's just plan for the 7th at, what, 6?
6.
Can you guys do that?
I can.
Oscar?
Yeah, the one that I have airport or for golf or something else, maybe.
Yeah, no, I can do it.
I thought you were going to say haircut.
I didn't say haircut.
No
That won't take
danger in
long.
that.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Are you good, Ralph?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Jerry?
You know, I can send out something to the council, kind of outlining at least some of the stuff that we've come up with to this point, what we've proposed for a question to this point, and then maybe that'll give us a starting point. And I also think considering what was already circulated, that's what at least 5% of the population in the city has been in favor of, so
Okay.
it's just food for thought, I suppose.
Okay, so we'll do the work session on the 6th?
The 6th.
7th, sorry. 7th at 6 PM. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on with the agenda. It's taking a little longer than I expected. Next item on the agenda, we do have a review of the Ports to Plains. We do have an update from Beverly Haggard, who is our representative to Ports to Plains from the city of Lamar. She wanted to give an update to the board. Sorry for the big, long delay.
That's okay.
The
That's
discussion
fine.
lasted much longer than I expected, so thank you
That's
for your
fine.
patience.
We had our first live meeting on Friday, so it worked out very good. Last year we had 2 virtual meetings. One was an annual meeting, and then we had a board meeting after that for virtual, but this was the first live meeting we'd had. So, the main topic was our report from our lobbyist from Washington DC, which Jack Shenendoff has been our lobbyist in Washington DC from the conception of Ports to Plains, and he is retiring as of Wednesday. So it was kind of a sad day for us because that was the last time, but he promised us that he would see us when we come to Washington DC when we go, if we go again, which they're planning on going in September or October, take 2 groups, smaller groups, and talking, because by September, they're hoping to have the reauthorization bill, transportation bill for 5 years reauthorization done by Senate and Congress by then, which will be $148 billion. Now it's trying to figure out where to get the money and where to spend that money. And there's 3 different sections of the bill and of the reauthorization. And the third one is the biggest one, and it is Biden's $2.3 trillion over 10 years. And they don't call them earmarks anymore. It's congressional discretionary spending, which is just a fancy word for earmarks. So they have them already, if we have them already done. And the good thing on the Ports to Plains corridor, we already have 5 of the earmarks. 1 will be in Nebraska, 1 in North Dakota, and 3 are in Texas. 2 of them are around Lubbock, and 1's down by La Mesa. And so those are already earmarked, and those are already all along the corridor. The biggest push for Texas and New Mexico are all on board for future Interstate I-27, which what they're wanting to get, that's what Ports to Plains is working for now. They've done all of the work in Texas and Mexico and New Mexico. They've got both of their DOTs on board. Our DOT is not on board. They're not against it, but the new head of DOT doesn't think rural transportation is important. How they can say that, how she can say that when, but all she wants is 5-year plans. With transportation, you can't think 5-year plans. You have to think 25 years out, and she will not do anything on 25 years out. So I have, Kathy was talking and saying that we think that if the cities and counties would get with their DOT people and tell them how important, I mean, we can see how important just the extra concreting of the 5 miles south of town or 6 miles south of town. And I mean, I drive that every day. I sit at the, for the pilot car, wait for the pilot car at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was sitting there one morning, a truck pulled up behind me, waited 2 minutes and went around me. Just as soon as I saw him go around and go down from the Elks, I saw the other cars coming, and I'm thinking this was at the first of it. I mean, there was 4-foot drop-offs on some parts of it. I mean, there's been 3 or 4 head-on collisions out there. It's just because people are stupid and they don't pay attention to signs. I had one blow his horn at me forever, so I said, well, I was going to get him. I went 25 miles an hour through it. It says you can go 40, but I went 25 just to make him mad. If he wouldn't have, laid on his horn at me, it would have been different. But with that, we need to educate everybody that rural transportation is where, they don't know how to fund the $148 billion because there's so many electrical cars. So they don't. Ports to Plains has always said that they would go for a tax increase, gas tax increase, but there has to be a user mileage fee because of electric cars, because of they're wanting to do away with all fossil fuels by 2035, which I think is outrageous. I don't know how we're going to do that, because when you plug in a semi and it only can run 4 hours on a charge, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not, things are going to cost way too much. But they're going to have to go with the user fee. The I-25 designation, I-27 designation, they're sure that Texas will okay it in this legislature starting in September, and New Mexico is on board with it.
So on the I-27 designation, I know it goes from...
It goes from, right now it
Amarillo
goes from the
north.
middle of Amarillo to the end of Lubbock and turns around and goes from Lubbock back to Amarillo. And what they're wanting to do is just for a future designation of it, all the way from, what it would be all the way from Del Rio, all the way through to Montana. But they're just going to do it in pieces. They're doing it in Texas and Oklahoma, because there's a spur in New Mexico off to
That's what I was wondering
to the
about.
off to I-25, and it goes to Raton. It goes from Dalhart to Raton through Clayton, and that's already 4-laned, and it's already 2 interstate standards. That's why if we get it designated as future interstate, any money that comes along for the Ports to Plains corridor, they will have to build 2 interstate standards. Now that means 4-lane divided, and that's
Not Super 2.
no, not Super 2s. They will use the Super 2 that we have through here, but not build another 2 lanes. But that's, that's why we're wanting to get it designated. And she's having a real problem with the Lyman to Scottsbluff, Nebraska, because they're going to go ahead and expand I-71, but just put passing lanes on it. They're not even concreting it. It's just going to have passing lanes on it. And the only reason they're doing that mainly is because there are so many windmills going back up, that there's so much truck traffic that they're finding that they're going to have to improve it. They just, the environmental study has been done, and they're ready for that. But Sherry, our lobbyist from Hanson Scarborough, who is in Austin, is going to start coming to Colorado to meet everybody along this so that she can meet with the DOT. She's going up in September to Heartland Express in Nebraska to meet the new Nebraska DOT chairman, because they just got a new one there. Cal is with the Theodore Roosevelt Expressway, and they have finished the T-Long Bridge, which was a 3-year project. They've 4-laned it. They've got it up to interstate standards. And then they're now working south of Watford City, going through the Badlands and Theodore Roosevelt National Park also. So actually, Colorado is the only one that is mainly 2-lane. No, we have no 4-lane on the but we do have the Super 2s, and we do have all the passing lanes are being worked on between Wiley and Hugo. Those are the ones that they're working on now on Ports to Plains. But then we have our new lobbyist, David Poor, who is with Hanson Scarborough, which is our lobbyist firm in Texas, and now we will have them in DC. But I'm not sure who they're going to take to DC in September and October. I don't know. They decided smaller groups. We will possibly have another actual board meeting, sometime in October. And they're thinking probably Amarillo or Northern Park, because San Angelo wants it, but it's too far for everybody to drive for just a board meeting. So does anybody have any questions on any of this? But if anybody has any pull with the new head of transportation in DOT in Colorado, would like to know so that we could get her on board with rural transportation and freight corridors.
You ever come down and sit and wait and watch how many trucks go by?
Well, yeah, that's, I time it because I know exactly where I can meet the big, when there's a whole bunch of trucks, and it's anywhere from 10 to 14 miles, and if I time it just right, I don't have to sit out there very long to wait to get my clients to where they're going. So, but I used to hate to sit in construction, but I keep telling myself it's money and it's only temporary. It'll be so much better when it's done. And the one on Highway 50 between Los Animas and La Junta, it just proves that it's so much better when it's done. No questions? Okay.
Have you had a chance to talk to Stephanie at all? Stephanie at SCCDD? Gonzalez?
No.
She's our DPR representative for the transportation.
Transportation.
So I
Okay,
thought she
will
might
try
be a
to.
good one if you ever get a chance to talk to her, to update her. But she works with the TPR a lot and meets with the regional and the state representatives from CDOT, so.
Yeah, we really need one, we need her on board.
I'll mention it to her as well.
Yeah, and if you can get me her number,
Okay.
Or get it to Brenda and she can give me an email and I can get it.
3850.
Yeah, we'll get it by email to you. That we have it down.
336.
3850.
And Stephanie?
SCCDP.
Okay, I will reach out to her and keep her up on, and try to get her to talk to transportation.
Thank you, Beverly.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is an appointment to Lamar Housing Board Authority Board. We do, currently there's one vacancy on the board. It was created by the expiration of the term of Ms. Sue Kilpatrick that expired on June 1st, 2021. City Council policy and procedure requires that all vacancies on the city boards and commissions be advertised in the local media. The position was advertised as required. 2 applications were received, and they are making a recommendation. Do you want to add anything there, Linda?
No.
No? Okay. Slide it off her.
I move we approve June Unruh's addition to the Housing Authority Board.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve Ms. June Unruh to fill the 5-year term. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimous. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an appointment to the Water Advisory Board. This is initiated by Tressa Holbert, the Water Board Secretary, and Robbie Badworth with the Water Department. But there is one vacancy on the Water Board due to Don Higby's term expiring on February 2020. At the regular meeting on June 10th, they recommended that the council re-engage Don Higby for another term that would end in 2025.
So moved for Don Higby.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve Don Higby. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimous. Next item is authorize matching funds and letter of support for the Tiger 9 grant from the city of Lamar. That is a little different. I did have a letter made up from information that I had received from the city of Lahana. Rick Klein had sent this over to me as a sample. Basically, over the last 10 years, or, well, actually not quite 10, 6 years, there's been the Tiger Grant, and this Tiger Grant has been successful in helping revive the BNSF Railroad, which the Amtrak Southwest Chief operates in the 3-state area of Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico. The federal government has been giving money to help renovate those that area, the segment of the train traffic. So what we're trying to do is apply again, once again, through Trinidad. Trinidad is the leading applicant. They will manage the funds. However, they are looking for support from all of the area, communities that are affected by this, and they are also asking for a $12,500 match. The $12,500 would only need to be paid if they were awarded this grant, but if they're not awarded this grant, we would not need to pay that. This grant and the project is in the amount of $25 million. They've been working on this, like I said, since 2014. So every year they've been receiving this for most of the years. This one is called the RAISE application just because they changed the name from Tiger to the RAISE. And the RAISE, basically the name was Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, the Discretionary Funds Grant Program. So what I'm asking for tonight is just to approve for me to sign this letter of support and also for authorization to earmark this $12,500 as a pledge if they do receive that grant for matching funds.
Make a motion to have the mayor sign.
Okay?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to sign and for the $12,500?
As long as we have the
Yep.
money and everything, or
I did budget 15,000 for that. We have spent some of that on our Shop Local campaign, like $11,000 of that, but I am going to do a supplemental for that, so, that's good. So I need your
So we'll
authorization
find
to
that for
spend
the
it out of it.
supplemental.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay.
It says in there, that grant will complete.
If it gets approved, then we would need to cover the
It's
first month.
completed, so we want to do it again and again and again.
Oh, as far as the actual work, yes, if they do get this grant and receive it, this 25 million will complete all of the work from the Kansas, Oklahoma, our section of it. So from this point, then they'll go into the next section and they'll ask those communities for support.
For the new members that don't know, Pueblo kicks in on this too.
Everybody along that trail will take it. Okay? So we have a motion and a second. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, the next item on the agenda is approve a lease agreement between the City of Lamar and the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, which is the Workforce Center. I have received the attached lease agreement asking for a signature to renew this lease. We've had this lease with them for quite some time now. This is just a renewal that expires on June 30th, so it's important that we get this renewed if we plan to. Lance, have you had a chance to look this over?
I have no issues with it. It is similar, it's not exactly the same, but it's fairly close. And the changes are pretty small, so it sounds like the changes that were made were things we were already doing, so.
Okay.
I move we approve the lease agreement and authorize the mayor to sign it.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the lease agreement and authorize the mayor to sign. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimous. The next item is to approve the budget calendar. This time of the year, we begin working on the budget. With us approving the budget calendar that is attached, this will set the time frame that we will be working on it until January the 1st. So do we have any questions on that, or did you want to add anything, Kristen?
No, we went through it, I made sure that the dates are, per our charter, they support the charter and the statutes that DOLA sets out on the calendar. Tried to do the dates that would work best with work sessions and things like that. So I picked those first Mondays of the month on the necessary work sessions as well. So I'd entertain any questions or suggestions if you have any.
So the main thing, just as a reminder, Anne Marie, the departments that you're managing between July the 12th and the 16th, we would just need to meet with the departments we're working on, with the department heads to review their budgetary needs, see what changes they need, go through it with them as the city administrator. And then on the following week, the city administrator would meet with the treasurer and the department head and go through it to make sure that what they're needing is realistic and that we can put it in within the budget after looking at the finances. And then it'll come in for a preliminary revenue estimate on the 26th or the 2nd of August.
My meetings are already scheduled.
Oh, good for you. Way ahead of you. There you go. Okay. Any other questions, council members? Nope. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Is that you? Yep.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion passes unanimous. Okay, final agenda item is an executive session or miscellaneous items. Do we have any miscellaneous items before we go into executive? Seeing none, there will be no decisions coming out of executive session. Or no discussions or votes after executive. We're going to have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to enter into executive session for the discussion of personnel matter under CRS 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses E, to discuss the applications received for the city administrator position. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes, and we'll now on to that. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.